Hello, hello. Happy Friday. I actually said it confidently that time. I didn't have to think about it because I know it's Friday. How's everyone doing? I have more spooky stories from the pages of Between Two Worlds with Nandor Fodor. Hello, hello. I have been reading stories from this 1964 publication by the Hungarian psychoanalyst and parapsychological researcher Dr. Nandor Fodor, or if you were reading a post that I was making about it over on the Let's Ghost Patreon, I accidentally added an extra O. I caught it, but I added an extra O onto the end of his name, and so I wrote Nandor Fodoro. And to be honest with you, I think it has a ring to it. It has a ring to it. What's the funniest typo that you all have ever made? When I made that typo, I started thinking about the other typos that I made. And the one that I think I am perhaps the most proud of is when I was trying to write about some Connecticut libraries who submitted stories for my Inside the World's Haunted Libraries book. I accidentally wrote Connecticutie instead of Connecticut. Why did my brain do that? Like when I finished the state, like Cutie. Connecticutie. That is probably my most favorite typo. And then what other typos when I was writing the book? I wrote, when I was talking about Minnesota, I wrote Minnesota. I don't know if you guys knew that that's the other Minnesota. And in a particularly egregious typo, which thankfully was caught by a colleague, on my CV, I misspelled the publisher of my first two books. Instead of Roman and Littlefield, I wrote it as Roman and Little Fiend. I don't know, they're all my favorite. Connecticutie is up there though. But I have another story for you tonight from the pages of Between Two Worlds by Nandor Fodor, Hungarian psychoanalyst and psychical researcher. And this book, Between Two Worlds, is all about his the cases that he has investigated and the things that he's encountered. And hello, thanks for being here. Tonight's entry, it's titled Vampire Abroad. So we've got a little bit of a hint, but if our other readings of Dr. Fodor's essays have taught us anything, it is that you do never know what to expect. You really never know where Nandor is going to go with this. I just wish that I wish that I don't know. I wish there was a way. I mean, maybe there could be a way. We could, we're all weirdos, right? I just wish there was a way that, we could let Nandor know how much joy he has brought us in these live streams through the reading of these stories. All right, let's get into it, though. This is Vampire Abroad by Nandor Fodor from the book Between Two Worlds, written in 1964. And you can find it, by the way, completely openly and freely accessible on the Internet Archive. So if you just go to archive.org and type in Between Two Worlds, that should be enough. You could do you one better and type in Between Two Worlds, Nandor Fodor. You could also just type in Nandor Fodor and see what else comes up. And whatever you do, just don't play a drinking game where you take a shot every time I say Nandor Fodor. All right. Let's get into this. Vampire Abroad. I was reading a story earlier, by the way. She says, let's get into this, and then immediately segues. I was reading an entry in this book earlier, and there it was about the most haunted house in England, right? Which you might think it meant that Nandor was talking about the Borley Rectory, which is how the phrase that Harry Price used to talk about the Borley Rectory in England. But Nandor was not talking about Borley Rectory. He was talking about another house in Perthshire, and outlined the outrageous amount of activity that was reported there. And Nandor was saying that, in his mind, that is the most haunted house in England. But in that essay, he couldn't title an essay like that and not talk about Harry Price and the Borley Rectory. And let me tell you, y'all, he was brutal about Harry Price and really gives us like some detail about, he says, he kind of like defends Harry Price at one point, because there was a book that was written about Borley Rectory that was apparently written by like two of Harry Price's own friends, and then a third author who was, I don't think, acquainted, but they were outrageously critical and basically said, in the essay, Nandor is telling us that the book basically says that the only rational conclusion to come to is that Harry Price himself was the ghost. And at one point, Nandor says he's coming to Harry Price's defense, because he says he doesn't think that was a fair. He doesn't think that was a fair, depiction or, representation. But then as soon as he says that in true Nandor style, he says something unhinged. And he's like, I'm not an apologist. He's like, I don't even like Harry Price. He was like, he's not a likable man. He's selfish, jealous, arrogant. And what did the phrase that he said, obsessed with his something. Oh my God. It was like obsessed with his, maybe, I don't know, glory at all costs. And I'm like, Nandor, how can you come to that conclusion and then think that if you describe somebody like that, how could you not think that perhaps they might, look, I'm not saying one way or the other what I think Harry Price did or didn't do in his, investigation. I don't know enough about him. It just was funny. It was funny, to just hear like Nandor's, I don't know. Anyways, whatever. Okay, this essay in the book, Between Two Worlds, is titled Vampire Abroad. And here we go. People engaged in the investigation of the paranormal must be prepared for everything. All right. They are natural targets for the discharge of emotions caused by strange experiences or a psychotic attack. Oh my God. That's like real intense. They must be prepared to investigate stories, however odd they appear, and regardless of their own reservations. In this spirit, I paid attention to a hysterical tale that was poured out to me over the telephone a few years ago at night. The caller gave his name as John Bendary of Park Avenue, New York City. I can't say it like Laszlo, but because we're talking about Nandor and the phrase New York City, oh my God. I'm like hearing Laszlo's like inflection of how he says New York City. Okay, this John Bendary dude once gave this hysterical tale to Nandor over the phone. Okay. John Bendary of Park Avenue, New York City. He had read my book, Haunted People, and had tried to find me for some time. The Hungarian consulate said that I was on Fifth Avenue. Remember, Nandor is Hungarian. The Hungarian consulate said that I was on Fifth Avenue, and the telephone operator gave him my number. He lived with his brother, who, 7 months ago, in the woods of Hungary, was bitten by a weird fox-like animal, and now it had bitten him in the neck while he was asleep. Okay, so he gets bit twice. He lived with his brother, who 7 months ago... Marley. We are reading an article or an essay titled Vampire Abroad from Nandor Fodor's book, Between Two Worlds. Okay, and we've just begun. Okay. He lived with his brother, this dude, John Benderi, lived with his brother who 7 months ago in the woods of Hungary was bitten by a weird fox-like animal, and now it had bitten him in the neck while he was asleep. So I'm guessing that means like it bit his brother and then it bit him. But Nandor's got a naked pronoun in here, and I don't like that. Who is he talking about? Whatever, let's continue. On top of this, the apartment resounded with unbearable animal noises, and things were flying about, with plaster falling from the ceiling and wounding his brother. They badly wanted help, and would I call? Okay, first of all, it sounds like they have an infestation of some sort of animal, which is no less terrifying. Honestly, I might rather want to deal with a vampire than an infestation of animals that are robust enough to bite me in the neck and make unbearable animal noises and cause things to fly about. I'm going to say it. I think I would rather deal with a vampire. I do believe, let's just continue with what we do in the shadows. We were talking about Nandor, obviously Nandor Fodor. We've got the mention of New York City. So we've got Laszlo in here. Now let's talk about Colin Robinson, right? Vampires, energy vampires. I absolutely believe that I have met a few energy vampires, and maybe you have too. I don't know, but there are some people, I swear to you, it's like uncanny that they can talk to me, and it's like I feel the life force draining out of me. Like, excuse me, are you a Sanderson sister, and are you sucking the life right out of me? Because rude. I don't know. Anyways, where was I going with that? Vampires, yes. Okay, so in the Benderi brothers' apartment, apparently John's brother 7 months ago in Hungary gets bitten by this weird fox-like animal. And I'm going to read this to assume that now John himself has been bitten in the neck by something while he was asleep. Okay, it says he lives with his, okay. Would I call upon them? Okay. So Nandor's story continues. The story smelt to high heaven. Oh my God. I love this. Okay. So Nandor just says what he thinks. We love this journey for him. The story smelt to high heaven. First, there was no Hungarian consulate in New York at the time, and Hungary was not open to visit by tourists. I was in the Manhattan telephone book. Besides, I could have been found very easily through my publishers. More than that, foxes have never been tied up with the vampire legends of medieval Hungary. Okay, so I'm guessing when this John Benderi fellow finally got a hold of Nandor, that he must have said the Hungarian consulate gave me your info. But Nandor is like, okay, well, there's your first problem, buddy, because there is no Hungarian consulate in New York at that time. Okay, and then he's like, why do you even have to lie about that? I'm in the Manhattan telephone book. You know what, honestly, I kind of agree with Nandor on this one. Like, be smart about it. Like, just be like, hey, I got your number. Okay. More than that, foxes have never been tied up with the vampire legends of medieval Hungary, If Benderi's brother was suffering from rabies, he needed medical help. I mean, he's not wrong, honestly. I love that Nandor is looking out for these dudes. The story was clearly a hoax. Nevertheless, there existed a vague possibility that psychosis may be hidden behind it. In that case, the vampire fantasy would reward the trouble of an investigation. As opposed to vampires at home, of course. Yes. Wonderful comment. So remember, too, Nandor was a psycho. That he, like, I don't know if this term is, like, out of vogue or not, like, used, but he is, often listed as a psychoanalyst. So, whatever. So he's saying now, okay, I think the story's a hoax, but there might be something going on. This guy might be suffering from some sort of psychosis or something might be going on. Maybe he needs help in that regard. So at this point, Nandor's thinking, I'm going to go in and deal with somebody who is having hallucinations, having a psychotic moment. Okay, Nandor continues. I offered to go immediately, but I was put off by 24 hours. The hoaxers were not prepared for such an immediate response. I mean, but why wouldn't you be? If you literally believe that a vampire-like thing, or at the very least, some sort of strange animal, is biting you in the neck and wreaking havoc in your apartment, I think I'd be like, you can come whenever you would like. The sooner the better. You want to come right now? I'll make sure the light's on. I'll have a coffee waiting for you. The hoaxers were not prepared for such an immediate response. I fell in with the suggestion and called the following day. I did not go alone, possibly in need of medical attention due to Hungarian vampire foxes. Yes, actually, you're correct. The Benderi brothers were probably like, all right, we got to go to urgent care first. Take care of these, like, wounds. Then we'll see you the next day, Nandor. Actually, okay, this makes sense. Okay, I did not go alone. I was accompanied by my friend, Richard Baron von... I'm not kidding you. Richard Baron von... oops, hang on. Richard Baron von... My phone is in the way. Skeding. Richard Baron von... Skeding. What? Spaghetti? What? Who lived in my house and was very keen for a vampire hunt. What? This dude, Baron, the Baron! And now there's a Baron! This story is What We Do in the Shadows. This book, wait, now I'm convinced that somebody who created What We Do in the Shadows, because this story has everything. Richard Baron von Sketting sounds fun. He really, you know what? I bet he was. He maybe is. Maybe he's a vampire. Maybe he's still around. Maybe he is the Baron from the show. I'm sorry. The more I read this, who created What We Do in the Shadows? Because I think that they have read Nandor Fodor. I think they have read this essay, Vampire Abroad, from the 1964 book Between Two Worlds, and I think it helped them craft this, like, narrative of, you've got a fucking guy named Nandor, and then you've got this other dude, Laszlo, who says New York City in a really fun, affected way, and then you've got vampires, and then you've got a baron. If there are more overlaps here, I'm gonna be doubly convinced. Someone in the writing room absolutely read Nandor. I am, yes. Yeah. That is absolutely what is happening here. Okay. Well, Baron Rich. Okay, so, oh God, wait, what did I say this guy's name was? Sorry. Jeez Louise. Richard Baron von Sketting, who lived in my house and was very keen for a vampire hunt. I want to know so badly what Richard Baron von Sketting, because you cannot just say Richard, you have to say his whole name. I want to know what Richard Baron von Skeding and Nandor sat around and talked about. Because they talked about the wildest things. They were probably like sitting in their little the little library with their like little wingback chairs, a fire going, the most like amazing smoking jackets. And probably Richard Baron von Skeding was like, say, I'm really keen for a vampire hunt. You know it. He continues by giving us a description of Richard Baron von Skeding. He is 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and looks the perfect picture of a movie detective. Oh my God. Richard Baron von Skeding was living in his house, and this is the description that Nandor has given. I want a romance fanfic written about this. I love the phrasing of that. Richard Baron von Skeding, who lived in my house and was keen for a vampire. It really is immaculate. You are right. Nandor is a poet. He's a poet. He has flair. He is so creative. He has a gift. Oh my God. Why am I sniffling so much? Probably an energy vampire somewhere nearby. Anyways, you know who writes really good fan fiction? Friend of the channel here, Monica Rosaka McFreaky. She writes amazing fan fiction. I really want her to write. I need in my life Nandor Fodor / Richard Baron von Skeding love story. I need it. Like, I actually need it. I've been reading, actually, we'll get back into this. I won't segue too much. I will. I've been reading a lot of, like, romance books, and I just feel like I just need the fanfic of it. Anyways, he is 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and looks the perfect picture of a movie detective. So, of course, I'm picturing Richard Baron von Skeding wearing, like, a trench coat and, like, a hat that's, like, pulled down to, like, his eyebrows. And he's, like, got his hands in his pockets. And he's kind of, like, mysterious. I love it. I hope that's how he rolls up to a vampire hunt. That's how he shows up to a vampire hunt. Okay. I assume we must have been watched from a window. What? The threat of disturbing the peace hung thickly in the air once the assumption was made that I had a detective with me. Oh, I see. So he's describing they're showing up to the house, to the Benderi brothers' apartment. And he says, I assume we must have been watched from a window because the threat of disturbing the peace hung thickly in the air once the assumption was made that I had a detective with me. Nandor Fodor, paranormal investigation. Richard Baron von Skeding, vampire abroad. Yes. I love it. Oh my God. Wait, tell me what RPF is. What is that? I need to know. I need to know the terms. Vampire abroad. I love it. Oh my God. Okay, so he's rolling up with Richard Baron von Skeding, who's looking like real person. Thank you. I often ask, like, sometimes Monica will send me, like, the things that she's written, and I often have to ask her too. I'm like, what is that? What is that term? What does that mean? What is that acronym? Okay, real person fic. I love it. So he is saying that they must have been watched from a window because the vibes were off. And he continues to tell us, we had difficulty in finding the house and could not locate the right apartment. But we were lucky to find a mailman making deliveries and were assured by him that there were no Benderis in this house. The plot thickens. We rang bell after bell and either had no answer or were met with screaming protest. What? It seemed that we were the disturbers of the peace. The Benderi brothers are not the Benderi brothers? I never heard of the Benderis again, and the assumption was more than legitimate that the would-be hoaxers had beaten a retreat. I regretted it because I had some experience with vampire fantasies. What? From a previous investigation in England, the story of which was published in my book, On the Trail of the Poltergeist, 3 years after I heard of the vampire fox. The story was one of sheer horror, rivaling that of Dracula, imperfectly remembered, but still revealing vague traces of identification. I regretted it because I had some experience with vampire fantasies from a previous investigation in England, the story of which was published in my book, On the Trail of the Poltergeist. Okay, but what does he mean? I regretted it because I had some experience with vampire fantasies. Obviously, I'm going to have to tell Monica, these are the two male main characters. And I'm going to need you to make it I'm going to need you to insert embed a vampire at some point in this fan fiction. Because Nandor is telling us he had some vampire fantasies. Actually, okay, wait, should we take a little pause and see if archive.org has a copy of On the Trail of the Poltergeist, and then see if we can find this vampire story that Nandor is talking about from England? Because this essay continues. I don't know where he's, going with it, but On the Trail of the Poltergeist. Let's see if it's in the Internet Archive real quick. On the Trail of the Poltergeist. It might be in Hathi Trust though. Ooh, if I don't find it here. No. Okay, it doesn't say that it's in Internet Archive. On the Trail of the Poltergeist. But you know what? There's always another. Okay, Hathi Trust. Let's see. On the Trail of the Poltergeist. Because what is this case that he's talking about? If we can't find it, I'll continue with the essay, because the essay does continue. But On the Trail of the Poltergeist is in Hathi Trust. That I've talked about it plenty here, but it's a weird sort of word. So it's Hathi, Hathi Trust. And there's multiple other works of Nandor's in here, including The Haunted Mind. A psychoanalyst looks at the supernatural, mind over space. Okay, but we are in, let me not get lost in my librarian rabbit hole. Let me tell you all the things, and then I get lost. And okay, let's do a search. Okay, so On the Trail of the Poltergeist. Let me go through the table of contents here. So this was published in 1958, so a few years before. Okay, so here we go. I'm looking at the table of contents right now. I'm trying to see if there's any that jump out as, there's a chapter. Chapter 20 is titled Vampire Visitations. We're going there. Okay. Vampire Visitations. You guys are seeing research in real time. Okay. So now I have to move my phone again. Okay. Because I've got it propped against my, I've got it leaned up against my laptop screen here. So I keep covering up. Oh my God. Why am I yawning? Energy vampire. An energy vampire is near. I swear to God. I'm looking out my windows now. Maybe 30% convinced that I'm going to see the face of Colin Robinson floating in front of my fucking window. Okay. Let's focus. Page 189. Vampire Visitations. Oh, I found it. Let's go. Okay. On the morning of May 19th, 2 days after the finding of the linen wrapper. Okay, well, clearly this is building on some sort of other whatever. I spoke to Mrs. Forbes over the telephone. Her voice was hardly audible. She felt as if she were going mad. Mrs. Forbes, sometimes it'd be like that. Her stomach had swollen up the day before, and she was unable to keep her balance when walking. Oh, that sounds awful. During the night, she told me she had a ghastly experience of which she dared not speak to her husband. What? I thought that the loss of balance might have been an unconscious reaction to the disaster that had befallen her apport demonstrations. Oh, we're talking about apports. These are items that mysteriously appeared, often talked about in the context of spiritualist seances. Maybe Mrs. Let's see. Wait, hang on. Maybe Mrs. Forbes is like a medium or something. Okay, anyways. We're just jumping in the middle of this book here, so some of this might not make sense, but that's okay. I thought the loss of balance might have been an unconscious reaction to the disaster that had befallen her apport demonstrations, but I made some mental reservations since I knew that in a tight corner, her imagination would work overtime. I inquired what the ghastly experience was. She then asked me if I remembered the incident about which she had spoken to me 3 weeks before. I remembered. She had a nightmare in which something bit the back of her neck. With an effort, she woke herself and thought it was a bad dream until in the morning she found some tiny red marks at the spot where she was injured in the dream. She had asked me to look at the marks when she saw me. The incident struck a chord of memory. I found that I had made a note of her story on April 22nd and remembered that I had looked at her neck but not too closely. Thinking that it was an erotic dream, I had dismissed the story from my mind. Monica's absolutely going to have to embed like vampire stuff. And look, we can continue taking our notes for Monica. The new experience was obviously not of this class. It spelled sheer horror. She awoke feeling something like a human body lying beside her on top of the cover. Something cold and hard, which she took her ahead. What? This doesn't make sense. She felt like there was a human body lying next to her on top of the covers, cold and hard, and she felt something touching her neck. She was unable to move. After a few seconds, the thing left with the flapping of birds' wings. Then she must have fallen asleep, and in the morning she woke limp and bloodless. Bloodless? Girl, if you're bloodless, you can't even wake up. Then she must have fallen asleep, and in the morning, she woke limp and bloodless. She pricked herself and drew no blood. Mrs. Forbes, what are you doing? There were 2 punctures with clots of blood on her neck. What? There were 2 punctures with clots of blood on her neck. Her voice was broken and full of agony. If the story was not true, it was very well chosen to arouse my interest. If, however, it was true, if she had gone through the horror of a vampire visitation, she badly needed help. She was not in the mental and physical health to survive recurring experiences of this type. Is anybody in the mental and physical health to survive recurring experiences of that? I could suggest no better immediate... Oh, oops, sorry. Oh my God. I forgot that scrolling on Hathi Trust is different. Okay. Vampire visitations. Oh my God. I've lost no wonder Nandor wanted another vampire encounter to study after this, right? Shit. Okay, I have lost my spot. The spot got apported right away from me because I hit the wrong buttons, because scrolling in Internet Archive is different than... Okay, we're back. Okay, so I could suggest no better immediate safeguard than that she should keep the electric light burning at night until I could clear up the matter. After this hasty advice over the telephone, it occurred to me that if she had invented the story, the puncture marks were not likely to be on her neck, as she was not expecting us to continue the sittings. In fact, she herself had told me that she would not be coming again. Even if she meant to, no sitting could have been arranged until the following afternoon, so there was no immediate hurry for her to inflict the puncture marks. Okay, so she is either taking part in a seance or she is the medium herself. Okay, this is the broader context. They might heal too soon. Here, I thought, was a chance of finding out something. At 2:30 p.m. that very afternoon, with Dr. Wills and Mr. Evans, I paid a surprise visit to Thornton Heath. What is this? The door was opened by George, who was both surprised and displeased to see us. There was an ugly look in his eye, and he seemed to hesitate for a second before letting us in. Maybe George just doesn't like people dropping by unannounced. Then, without a word, he turned and walked off. Later, having thawed, he said that Mrs. Forbes had been strange all that day and the day before. Mark my words, he said, in Mrs. Forbes' presence. In 3 months' time, I will have to buy a wreath for her. What does that mean? Is that like I don't understand that. This is the downside of like reading things like obviously that are not contemporary. There's like phrases that are in 3 months' time, I will have to buy a wreath for her. Okay, I'm assuming it doesn't mean anything good. Examining Mrs. Forbes's neck, we found 2 irregular, fairly deep punctures behind the sternal-mastoid muscle. Whatever, I don't know. I think that was a grief practice. Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense now. Okay. They found fairly deep punctures behind a certain muscle, a little more than 1/8 of an inch apart. There were some faint parallel scratches around them. The skin was red and swollen. In Dr. Will's opinion, the scarring was not sufficiently advanced to show that the punctures were not caused within the last few hours. In other words, they might have been caused at midnight, as per Mrs. Forbes's story. We cross-examined Mrs. Forbes, and this is her story and answers to our questions. Last night, May 18th, about 10:15 p.m., I went up before my husband to go to bed. As I reached the right-hand side of the bed, I heard the fluttering of a bird. The air was disturbed, and it seemed to vibrate. Then I heard no more. I did not light the lamp, and I did not draw the curtains. I thought that the thing might come again, and I would see what it was. Then my husband came up and asked me why I didn't draw the curtains. There's a lamp on the opposite side of the street which gave enough light for him to undress. He went to bed without switching on the electric light. There's a lamp which gave him enough light for him to undress. Do you need any, though? I'm just like, you know where things are in your room. Anyways, whatever. He went to bed without switching on the electric light. I could not keep awake. Something like chloroform put me out. I fell into a heavy, unnatural sleep. It may have been around midnight that I woke with the sensation that there was something ghastly on my left-hand side, which is the opposite from that of my husband, on top of the cover. It felt like a human body. Pressing against my neck was something cold and hard. It felt like the size of a person's head. Oh, this is so creepy. This is actually creepy. Okay. I could not move. I could not shout. I was frozen with fear. I felt myself getting weaker and weaker, sinking. I imagined that bleeding to death would give the same sensation. I felt like this when I lost a lot of blood after an operation. Oh my God. Can you imagine? Is this like sleep paralysis, but with like, I've never heard of like, and not that I've read like a bunch about sleep paralysis, but like the bits that I have read and like the 2 times that I've experienced it myself, I never like sensed anything on me Do people have sleep paralysis and like feel like things touching them? Good God. Okay. The question, how long did this sensation last? Mrs. Forbes, not long. I became conscious of the thing pressing into my neck. Oh my God. And I started feeling weak. It gave me no pain, but I felt pins and needles all along my neck. The thing itself was quite still. No. Question, did you feel lips or teeth? Mrs. Forbes, it's hard to tell. I had the impression of something biting. The idea came to my mind that whatever was pressing on my muscles was trying to paralyze me, but I was too frightened to think. The body itself was a dead weight. It felt cold and nasty. There was a smell, the smell of rotten meat, the same smell that came after the violet apport on my wedding anniversary. What? If this was really in her mind and not a creature encounter, this is still horrifying to consider. 10 out of 10. Oh my God. And now she's saying there's a smell of rotten meat? The question, was there blood on the pillow in the morning? Mrs. Forbes, I didn't look. I almost yelled as I woke up. My neck felt sore. I put my hand up and felt 2 little lumps. The thought crossed my mind that I must have scratched myself, but I don't think I could scratch myself like that. Question, how did the thing leave you? Mrs. Forbes, quite suddenly. Immediately after I was able to move. Directly it left me, I heard the same flapping noise, a sudden swoosh through the air with a regular beat. It went towards the window, yet I saw no shadow crossing it. The top of the window was open. The light in the street was still on. I felt too weak to get up, and I dared not wake up my husband. He's been complaining of feeling terribly weak every morning. Maybe the vampire was getting him too. I did not want to upset his night's rest. Okay, question. Has your husband complained of any bad dreams? Mrs. Forbes, answer, no, except that he has a recurrent dream that someone is cutting his throat. Jesus, Mrs. Forbes, what do you think is a bad dream? Nandor Fodor literally says, has your husband complained of any bad dreams? And she straight up says to him, no, but he has a recurring dream that someone's cutting his throat. I don't think Mrs. Forbes is well. It's not funny. I don't think she's well. He has it on average of once a month. You know, once a month for like many years of my life. I would have a recurring Michael Myers dream. And I still remember them so vividly. Look, I think it was mostly a symptom of like my parents being very, very, Kristen, you did come in at a good time. My parents were always very like, I mean, I watched like so many things, right? Like they weren't really, whatever they were watching, like I was watching. Like I remember one of my favorite movies when I was a little girl was Pretty Woman, because that's what my mom would watch, and I would just be watching whatever she was watching. And like I remember telling a babysitter when I was like 6 or 7, what do you want to watch? Pretty Woman. It's my favorite movie. I mean, obviously I didn't understand the context. I was just like, whatever. Anyway, so I absolutely know for a fact that I watched Halloween way too young, and I had recurring nightmares like once a month for like more than a decade of my life that Michael Myers, I was getting got by Michael Myers. So apparently Mrs. Forbes' husband is complaining of feeling terribly weak every morning and has been having recurring dreams that someone is cutting his throat. Good God. It did not start with the poltergeist trouble. She says he's reliving his war experiences. Or are you being plagued by a vampire? Next question. Did he have any marks on his neck? Miss Forbes says, no. He never said anything unless the fluttering of the bird, which arrived at the Institute, was anything. He told me the night before that there was a bird in the room. He heard it settle on the chair beside my bed. This is so creepy. I saw The Hills Have Eyes in elementary school. Oh, no. That's brutal. That is brutal. Oh, my God. Condolences to just all of our psyches, right? Seriously. Are we sure it's a bird, though? Seriously. Oh, my God. He told me the night before that there was a bird in the room. He heard it settle on the chair beside my bed. I'm actually like giving myself goosebumps a little bit. This is kind of scary. Next question. Is it since then that he feels weak in the morning? Mrs. Forbes' answer, it would be since about that time. Oh my God. Question. Why do you associate your experience with loss of blood? Her answer, I felt very cold in the morning. My hands were dead white and bloodless. My face was awful. My next door neighbor said, you look like a ghost. There's no blood in you. My operation and the stories which my husband told me of his nearly bleeding to death in France are further reasons to associate the experience with loss of blood. What is happening? They're absolutely getting plagued by a vampire. What is happening? There might be something else tucked away in my mind that I can't bring forward. For the life of me, I can't think of it now. The next question was, do you think it might be something that you had read or were told? She says, no, my impression is that it's something ghastlier. Then he says, is this impression due to the smell? And she says, no, it's the presence of something. It makes me shudder. I want to pull away and cannot. Did you ever try to run away from something in a dream and couldn't? Well, this is the same sensation. Oh my God. She's living Dracula. Oh my God. The question, was the smell there all the time? Mrs. Forbes said, yes. Only once did I smell something similar. As a child, our neighbor had died. And I guess the neighbor's wife had asked them to help with moving the body, and she's recalling this experience. But it's kind of graphic, so I'm not going to read it. Dr. Wills looked at Mrs. Forbes' eyes and hands. They were white and anemic. And she continued, I had the taste of blood in my mouth this morning, that peculiar tang that you get when a tooth is bleeding. The next question Nandor asked her is, was the experience of 3 weeks ago quite similar? And she says, no, I had the power of shaking it off. The marks on my neck were not sore and there was no bump underneath. I had the sensation of loss of blood too, but not the sensation of sinking. The next question Nandor asked her is, have you ever had any experiences or dreams that may have any connection with this happening? And her response is, sometimes I feel that I am not here, that I am not really alive. I feel as if I had died on the operating table. It seems to me as if another person had taken possession of my body. I'm often told things which I am supposed to know, but don't. I used to tell my husband after my last kidney operation, I'm not really here. I'm dead. You don't know it. You can't really hear me. Ugh, poor Mrs. Forbes. I used to touch them after that operation. They would not feel me or they would not hear me when I was talking. Who's them? I don't know. Since then, when I walk, I feel as if I were above the ground and floating along. Oh my God. Okay, so she says, then again, I often dream that I am in a hall of coffins. It's a big stony place, but not a cellar. There are steps leading, like the vampire's lair? Like the vampire's lair? Okay, then again, I often dream that I'm in a hall of coffins. It's a big stony place, but not a cellar. A cellar. I'm getting so freaked out, I can't even. Okay. There are steps leading from it and lots of coffins. I stand and watch and see myself rising from one of the coffins. Before I leave it fully, everything goes misty. I try to wake up and get back to my body, but I can't. When I finally wake up, my heart is beating terribly, and my breath comes in gasps. I had this dream about 6 times altogether. It started some years ago. Mrs. Forbes. I feel so bad for her. The entry continues. Mrs. Forbes told her story very convincingly. It read like a page from Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it was impossible to shake off the impression that she lived it, even though in fantasy only. Nandor spells fantasy here, by the way, as Phantasy. I've never seen it spelled like that. I wonder if that's a real spelling or if that was just like literary, like just sort of literary license of like the phantom like nature of this, like, you know, is that why he spelled it like that? Let's see. Fantasy. It's a variant spelling of fantasy restricted to archaic uses, mostly related to psychology and psychiatry. Okay, so it's just a word of the times. Phantasm and fantasy. Yeah, right? Are we sure that, look, dude, this is wild. What? Oh, I have lost my spot. Hang on. Let me move this. Oh, yes. I've covered up my tabs because I've got my phone resting on the back of my laptop. Okay. Let's see here. Then again, I had a dream that I'm going to hold because of her dream. Okay. Mrs. Forbes told her story very convincingly, the fantasy. For her, it was nonetheless real and terrifying. Okay. We knew now that the punctures were not imaginary and not due to an afterthought. Okay. Makes me wonder what kind of toxins this poor woman was exposed. Yes. I mean, clearly. Oh, I feel so bad. We knew now that the punctures were not imaginary and not due to an afterthought. Was the loss of blood a fact too, or was her anemic condition an appearance due to autosuggestion or some other inhibition of her normal functioning? Wow. On Friday, May 20th, about 40 hours after the vampire visitation, Dr. Wills took Mrs. Forbes to St. Thomas's Hospital for a thorough examination. Her constant loss of weight may have meant that a cancerous growth was returning. A blood count was taken, and it was found that hemoglobin was 94, as any count above 80 is normal. She definitely wasn't suffering from anemia. Her eyes and skin looked the same as the day before. If she had lost any blood, by the date of the count, the fluid would have been replaced. But there was no reason to think that her blood was diluted. We are therefore fairly safe in concluding that she lost no actual blood. Her sensation of weakness and her sinking feeling might have been due to another cause. The punctures fit in with the vampire story very well. No doubt they were meant to bear out the fantasy, spelled again with a PH. But they were not caused by a blood-sucking bat and no more represent a supernormal phenomena than the burn marks on her neck did at the time of the necklace's appearance. They're alluding to something else here because we're halfway down this book that he's talking. Since the skin was definitely pierced, I assume the punctures were self-inflicted under the terrific suggestive effect of the blood-sucking fantasy, which left her with a taste of blood in her mouth when there was none. When the fantasy first took shape in her mind, there was no bird, only a sinking feeling, which to her meant loss of blood. The bird association was due to her husband's suggestion. Having assimilated this new element, she heard the fluttering and sat up for the bird in the dark. In the abnormal sleep into which she fell, the punctures became an inevitable elaboration. I don't know how they were inflicted, but I imagine that a hairpin with two sharp ends closely pressed together would be ideal for this purpose. There is, however, no proof that this was the instrument. In fact, there is good evidence against it. What? In an association test on June 28th with 100 test words, I got no abnormal reaction to two consecutive words, puncture and hairpin. Okay, so he's doing some sort of other like psychological test with her. Oh my God. Okay. So he's saying here, the sensation of losing blood and the sinking feeling was real. On June 24th, Mrs. Forbes had a second vampire experience, and in retrospect, she suddenly recalled an odd connecting factor, the coincidence of her monthly functions with the visitation. That's how they used to say. I mean, I know there's been many words used to like describe it. Her monthly functions. There was another more important link. The first vampire visitation followed after Mrs. Forbes' apports, because she was involved in some sort of seances. Okay. Whether she was just a sitter, somebody attending it, or whether she was the medium herself, I don't really know. The second appearance of the vampire was similarly preceded by humiliation and defeat. After her arrival at the Institute on June 24th, as I was walking up with her on the main staircase, I saw her calmly open her bag, take out her handkerchief, and throw something over her shoulder. It was a small stone. I said nothing at the time, but after the sitting, I had it out with her. She denied indignantly that she had thrown it. Being now only interested in her psychological stress, I allowed myself to be persuaded that she did not do it. And then she has another dream where she's getting like bit with the punctures. He examines her. He finds punctures. Oh my God, Kristen said, I mean, I could see that attracting a vampire. I mean, I don't know, maybe. Gosh, this is wild. Yeah. So this is the vampire case that Nandor is referencing. He goes on to just talk about some of the other, like, how he thinks that how and why he thinks that these are hallucinations happening. And apparently this all is lodged in a broader discussion about apparently poltergeist outbreaks happening at the Forbes house, which I think is what got Nandor involved with this couple in the first place. Yeah, so he goes on to, oh my God, I may well be asked if it is not a much simpler solution of the mystery that she had read the story of Dracula or seen the film and has invented an exceedingly thrilling tale for the purpose of securing our further interest for herself. I don't know. He ends up putting the word Dracula in a group of words. He was doing some sort of tests with her, some sort of measures with her involving words on cards. Okay. When we came to it, she looked puzzled. The word had no meaning for her, and she was unable to associate anything with it. She asked for a repetition of the word and gave an impression of complete sincerity. As the association test continued, the word stoker came up. Her association was coal, and it came immediately, showing that to her the idea of Bram Stoker was not a familiar one. Yeah, that's kind of a fascinating way of testing that. Good Lord. Yeah. So I'm just like browsing some more. He goes on to, talking about his inquiry into, just why he thinks this is kind of a... Okay, so let's get back to the original essay then in Between Two... Okay, so we're back to Between Two Worlds now, which is what we started reading. We started reading an essay titled Vampire Abroad in Nandor Fodor's 1964 book, Between Two Worlds. Word association is a really weird test if you don't have a robust vocabulary too. Oh, that's a good point. Yes. So we took a pause to read a vampire case that Nandor references in this essay titled Vampire Abroad in his book Between Two Worlds. And what we have learned so far is that a dude named John Benderi randomly gets a hold of him one night and says that he and his brother, who are living in New York City, are being terrorized by something that 7 months prior bit his brother in the neck when he was in the woods in Hungary, and has now bitten John in the neck in their apartment. And apparently there's all sorts of strange noises, strange animal noises, and chaos happening. They ask Nandor, will he come? So Nandor shows up with his friend, Richard Baron von Skeding. That's his name. So-called John Benderi. Yes, right? The alleged John Benderi. So they show up to the guy's address, this apartment complex, and there are no Benderi brothers to be found. Everybody in the complex is like, there's no such dudes. And they're getting irritated with Nandor and Richard Baron von Skeding. So, he says here, we were assured that there were no Benderis in the house. We rang bell after bell and either had no answer or were met with screaming protest. It seemed that we were the disturbers of the peace. This next section is what prompted me to take a little research segue. Because he says, I never heard of the Benderis again, and the assumption was more than legitimate that the would-be hoaxers had beaten a retreat. I regretted it because I had some experience with vampire fantasies from a previous investigation in England, the story of which was published in my book, On the Trail of the Poltergeist. Okay. Okay, so that's why the dramatic persona was a Mrs. Forbes, around whom a tremendous upheaval had been reported by what is called a racketing spirit. The investigation had been on for many weeks, and I was conducting it as director of research of the International Institute for Psychical Research of London. She reported a vampire visitation during the night. She awoke feeling something like a human body lying beside her on top of the cover. Something cold and hard, which she said felt like a head was touching her neck. She felt paralyzed. After a few seconds, the thing left her with the flapping of a bird's wings, and in the morning, she found 2 punctures clotted with blood at the back of her neck. So we're back to Between Two Worlds. Okay. Oh my God. Wait. Nandor literally says this. This is the next line. Respectable vampires bite people in the jugular vein in front of the neck, and they do draw blood. Respectable vampires now go for the jugular. Mrs. Forbes was pale as a ghost, but judging by a belated medical checkup, lost no blood. However, the puncture marks were real and deep behind the sternal mastoid muscle, a little more than 1/8 of an inch apart. I thought that the 2 ends of a hairpin could well have inflicted the wound, but why? Was she playing a game or acting out an unconscious fantasy? Respectable vampires, how would you know, Nandor? Oh, exactly. Exactly. The answer is that she was doing both, and the unconscious element was the most fascinating part of the story. In a grueling cross-examination by myself and by Lawrence Evans, my assistant, and by Dr. Wills, the medical advisor, we were told the following tale. Which I had just read, but so Mrs. Forbes said, I went up before my husband to go to bed. I heard the fluttering of a bird. I did not light the lamp and did not draw the curtain. I thought that the thing might come again, and I would see what it was. I could not keep awake. Something like chloroform put me out. I fell into a heavy, unnatural sleep. It may have been around midnight when I woke up with a sensation that there was something ghastly on my left-hand side, which is the opposite side from my husband. On top of the cover, it felt like a human body. Pressing against my neck was something cold and hard about the size of a head. I couldn't move. I couldn't shout. I was paralyzed. I felt I was getting weaker and weaker, sinking. Directly it left, and I heard the same flapping noise, a sudden swish through the air with a regular beat. It went towards the window. Perhaps presently she thought of several relevant things. As a child, hanging onto her mother's skirt, she had visited a dying man, that neighbor that he had. Okay, so she goes on to say, oh yeah, and then she talks about the dream, about how she's in a cellar, like seeing a whole bunch of coffins. Add this to the nightmares of her husband about his throat being cut and the deep hostility that I knew existed between them. Oh shit, what? And you can see why I was frightened that the vampire fantasy is a prelude to a drama of homicide. What? What? Is he saying that he's like straight up worried that Mrs. Forbes is going to like kill her husband? Or he's going to kill her? Like what? Somebody's going to kill somebody? Okay. The strange fact also emerged that each time the vampire visitation took place, flipping the page, she had her what does it say? What did they call it? Her monthly habits or whatever. And I could not help wondering whether she was trying to retaliate. What? Trying to retaliate? What? It took a while to discover that it was not against Mr. Forbes that the homicidal buildup was being used. It was against me. I was the vampire by exposing her fraudulent phenomena. Oh, this took a turn. Marital strife. You didn't say anything about this on the train of the right? The trail of the poltergeist. Now, to be fair, I was skipping around quite a bit, and he might talk about that on the trail of the poltergeist. I don't know. But yes, oh my God. It took a while to discover that it was not against Mr. Forbes that the homicidal buildup was being used. It was against me. I was the vampire who had assaulted her by exposing her fraudulent phenomena. Because he, I think, ends up getting involved in this case because of some poltergeist-like activity happening in the home. And then all this vampire stuff comes out. I think. Okay. When the first vampire visitation took place, she had a greater fall than Humpty Dumpty ever sustained. Oh, shit. We found a linen wrapper dropping on the floor from under her skirt, and there was evidence that it was used for apporting objects that she concealed in her skirts. This was a shattering blow to her occult reputation. But the investigation continued, and I caught her before the second vampire attack. She was throwing a small stone. He mentions this. She was throwing a small stone from her purse behind her back, an apport for which the poltergeist was responsible. Also, a living bird flew up from under her skirt, and I was pretty well convinced that it was hidden there in a small bag. What? Remember, too, that Dracula was a Hungarian count. Was he? I don't know. Vampires were supposed to abound in Hungary, and I am Hungarian. She denied ever having heard the Dracula story, and association tests with it seemed to bear her out until she recalled that her husband had seen the motion picture made of Bram Stoker's story and had warned her not to see it. In that motion picture, Dracula is played by Bela Lugosi, another Hungarian, and moreover, an old friend of mine. Nandor just out there being old friends with Bela Lugosi? This fucking guy. This is amazing. As a medium, okay, so now we finally get confirmation that Mrs. Forbes she's a medium. I think perhaps engaging in fraudulent activities that Nandor has caught her on. As a medium, Mrs. Forbes had a slowly emerging spirit guide. When it first appeared, Mrs. Forbes had difficulties of articulation. She was in trance, and very faintly the name came out. Nandor knew Bela Lugosi, right? I mean, geez Louise. Her spirit guide's name was Bremba? Bremba, not Brenda, Bremba. Note that the sound contains Bram and ER, the first name of Bram Stoker and the last syllable. Further, when Bremba was asked, what the fuck, Bremba? When Bremba was asked to explain the meaning of the bites, he said that the medium's soul had been cast out of her body, but it comes back to gain sustenance from the blood of its former body, and in coming back it takes the form of a bird. The bird has to be killed, then the entity that possesses her body will have to leave, and then her soul will return. That's a lot, Bremba. Bremba. What? We should wait up for the bird. It was a bat. It would appear again in about 3 weeks when the medium had recovered the blood that she had lost. We should open the windows, turn out the lights, catch it in the net, and wring its neck. Oh my God. The hour should be 12:30 a.m. The macabre fantasies of Mrs. Forbes were now in full flower. Murder had entered into it. Heaven only knows what would have happened if I had been stupid enough to go along with her vampire fantasy. I bowed out. And that is the end. That is the end of the essay. That is the end of the essay titled Vampire Abroad in Nandor Fodor's 1964 book Between Two Worlds. The words "I bowed out" are the end. Those words are the end of this essay. I bowed out. Nandor out. I don't know. Never mind, I hate Nandor. How can he just end it like that? How? Yes, Britt. Oh my God. Realizing his name is Nandor, he calls himself a vampire in this. He's discussing Dracula, which was based on Vlad the Impaler, which is who Nandor is implied to be on the show. Yes, and Britt, there is a character in this, in this story, in Nandor's book, there's a character named Richard Baron von Skeding. So we've got a Baron, and then there's mention of these brothers living in New York City. And I think of Laszlo and his affectation of New York City. And then you've got vampires, right? Like, just come on. Come on. Come on. Look, I think that somebody involved in the creation of What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, the writing room. The writing room knew. The writing room had to have known. You guys see it. I see it. We all see it. Somebody is a Nandor Fodor fan. New York City. Yeah, exactly, right? Oh my God. It is so good. This essay is so good. Why is Nandor just like all of these essays have just been like, these are I don't usually just like get on and continue reading from the same thing in like my lives. I usually mix it up, but like every time I have a thought to like sit down and do a live, I'm like, you know what? Hell yeah, we're going to keep reading Nandor Fodor's Between Two Worlds because they are just bangers. They are bangers. Oh my God. And then whenever we are done with this book, we can just go back to On the Trail of the Poltergeist and read more about that. And we can just read more of his other books because he had many. He's such an incredible writer, but I still can't believe this guy sometimes. Yes. You know what? Oh my God. And that's why Nandor is like this fucking guy. Because whoever was initially one of the writers probably had that reaction to Nandor when they were reading his book. There's always some wild stuff in them. Yes, Britt. Yes. There's always wild stuff in here. There's always wild stuff in here. I'm flabbergasted, bamboozled. Bamboozled in the best way. Bamboozle us, Nandor. We absolutely love it. I'm not mad about it. Oh my God. Let me read to you some of the other chapter, titles. Okay, so there's 4 different sections. The first section is The Famous and the Great, where it's ghosts related to famous people. Mackenzie King's Search for Survival. Lincoln and the Unseen. Who was the real Francis Grierson? The Unknown Dickens. The Riddle of Vaslav Nijinsky. What? Who is that? That sounds like a great okay. The next section is Highways and Byways of the Mind. I have read from that before. We've got The Voice Within, Ghosts Within and Without, The Dark Side of Telepathy, Through the Gate of Horn, Adventures in Spirit Photography, The Great Memory. The next section is Of Ghoulies and Ghosties, which this one falls into. Vampire Abroad, Goblin of the Loaf, which we have read. The Living Machine of Reverend John Murray Spear. Whoa. The Rage That Burns the House Down. Oh, maybe we got to do that one. The Baltimore Poltergeist, which we have read here. Haunted by the Living. The Talking Mongoose, which Nandor Fodor is probably most famous for. Jeff the Mongoose. Fairies should be seen, but not heard of. What? And then the next section is of things that go bump in the night, including The Most Haunted House in England, The Ghost of Raynham Hall, The Man Who Bit a Ghost. I think we read that one. The Haunter is a cat, followed by The Haunter is a Dog, followed by Who Rings the Bell, followed by The Phantom Boatmen of Maidenhead. Oh, all of these look so good. Hunting the Table Tilting Ghost. And then the next section is Good Lord Deliver Us, and they are religious related, including Weeping Madonnas, The Face on the Wall, Wonders in the Sky, Phantom Priests of Joan of Arc. It's just fascinating stuff. There's more. There is more to continue reading. So now polter dogs are allowed, right? Yes. Oh my God. Nandor. You weird little guy. I love him so much. Oh my God. Okay, well, this was Vampire Abroad by Nandor Fodor, as found in his book Between Two Worlds, that you can find in the Internet Archive. It is over there. I've been reading a couple stories also over, oh my God, excuse me, in the Let's Ghost Patreon. I just read the Haunted House of England. But I haven't uploaded it yet because I had to do it in 2 videos and I don't know how to put them together. Anyways, it'll get uploaded. But in that one, Nandor had a lot of critical things to say about Harry Price, the investigator, perhaps most famously affiliated with Borley Rectory. In true Nandor fashion, he had some really unhinged things to say. Oh my God. Vampire Abroad. The mystery of the Benderi brothers apparently never was solved. We shall never know who the Benderis were, what happened to them. I think they became writers on, nearly 60 years later, they became writers on a show called What We Do in the Shadows. I think that's what became of the Benderi brothers. I swear to God, if there was a Benderi somehow like on the writer's cast or like somehow affiliated with the making of What We Do in the Shadows, then we know. I'm calling it right now. I will accept that as proof of our theory. I think we already have proof of our theory through this essay. But I will accept that as like the stamp of approval. He's also going right out of his mind half the time. Yes, Nandor is absolutely going out of his mind. Oh my God, he's such a weirdo and we love him. Poor guy. Poor fucking guy. Anyways, they're so wonderful. So wonderful to read. Oh, thanks for being here. I hope y'all are having a good Friday. I can't stop. Energy vampire. I swear to you, like you read about like vampires and then I literally just saw something move out of my window. What was it? Like I think it was like a cat. There's multiple. Poor things. It's like so cold out there. There's a lot of little cats. I don't know, but maybe I should sprinkle some garlic like in front of my door just in case. There isn't. Oh, here we go. There isn't a Benderi's, but there is a Jake Bender in a. Oh my God! Thank you for doing this research. There's a Jake Bender in a writer role. That is close. Look, if your name was Benderi and you were like a vampire and you were like, oh, I gotta switch it up because people are getting like weirded out that like I haven't, aged in like 30 years and I can only tell them, I can only use the SPF does wonders for your skin excuse so many times, I think Jake Bender is one of the Benderi brothers. I will accept this. Thank you for doing the Lord's work and doing that research for us. Jake Bender. Jake Bender. I will accept it. It's too close. That's how, like, I would be like, oh, let's just keep it easy so I don't, like, forget my name, you know? If I were, like, a vampire, why would I, like, make, like, entire new personas? That's too much to remember. It's too much to keep up here. Too much to keep up here. Jake Bender is absolutely one of the Benderi brothers. Oh, my God. I wonder if anyone else has ever pieced this together. Have we cracked the code? Did we ever find out the brother's name? Or nope, it doesn't say anything. It just says the John Benderi is the one brother, but we don't know the other brother's name. So there's a 4-letter J name, Jake, John Benderi absolutely is Jake Bender. Are you kidding me? Just that he was bit and hungry. Yeah, that's all we know about the brother. And apparently that they somehow, John Benderi, or a person claiming to be John Benderi, gets a hold of Nandor and is like, some weird shit happened 7 months ago in the woods of Hungary. My brother gets bit in the neck by a strange fox-like creature. Now we're living in New York. We're hearing freaky animal noises. Shit's getting flown around all the time. Can you come visit us? Then he goes. With his friend, Richard Baron von Skeding, they go to the apartment complex, and people are like, we've never heard of the Benderi brothers. John and Jake Benderis. Yes. You guys. Do you think they know that we know? Everybody maybe sleep with some garlic under their pillow. If you don't have real garlic, just some garlic powder or garlic salt. Put some garlic bread. I'm losing my mind. I am taking Nandor's journey. We cracked it. I think we did. You guys, if I was about to say something gruesome. It's just a joke, obviously. Look, if I disappear, if you never see me again on a live talking just whatever unhinged stuff I talk about on here, if you never see a live again, find Jake Bender. This is so stupid. We connected the dots. We did it. Oh my God, we did it. This is amazing. I was going to say I should start making like a Substack or something where I like write all these things out. But then I'm like, no, actually, I should not. I should not put this in the written record. These are just relegated to the lives. Okay. People can just enjoy that here. And if somebody rewatches this, because I share all my lives, if somebody rewatches all of this, however long we've been talking, and they make it to this point to see me absolutely unhinged and losing it, then I don't know, Merry Christmas. Bring it. I either turn into a vampire or I have a really crazy death. Like, did you hear about the girl who got killed by a vampire? Brit. Yes. That is amazing. Oh my God. I love how you put it. I either turn into a vampire or I got a really crazy death. No garlic for me. I mean, that's fine. Living on the edge. That's all right. This is amazing. Look, the similarities. Richard Baron von Skeding. Nandor. New York City. Vampires. The similarities. The Benderi brothers, a Jake Bender on the right, one of the writers. Come on. I'm convinced. I'm absolutely convinced. Oh my God. Oh God. Okay, well, on that note, everybody be safe from the Benderi brother vampires tonight, okay? Let me know if you have any weird dreams. I hope you don't. If you do have weird dreams, I hope they're pleasant and not at all scary. Either way, if you have weird dreams of either the pleasant or the unpleasant variety, feel free to let me know. If you think you get visited by the Benderi brothers, also please let me know. And yeah, this was another wonderful adventure frolicking through the pages of Between Two Worlds with Nandor Fodor, our lovable weirdo. He never fails to deliver. He is absolutely unhinged. He is unwell. We love him. Oh my God. How do I end a stream like this? I don't know. Good God. Okay. I gotta watch like Paddington or something, because like the story of that lady, Mrs. Forbes, and like her dreams and stuff, even though Nandor eventually figured her out, and I think she really did have some trauma, like that was kind of spooky. Oh yes, Britt. Good night. Don't die. Maybe I should watch some What We Do in the Shadows, actually. Oh, maybe I should do that. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It lives on, just as the vampire continues to live on and on and on. You know what I should actually do? I should submit this idea to some academic conference, like the Pop Culture Association. I have presented there before. Happy dreams, don't get got. Boop. And then I just like exit and I'm out. The Pop Culture Association conference is hands down, so far in my experience, the best academic conference that you could ever go to. It is so much fun. It is so much fun. There are people there. They have entire occult tracks, people talking about tarot and just all of its intersectionalities. And anyways, I could absolutely I could turn this into a paper. That's the good thing about academia. You can turn any fucking thing into a paper. It's a weird world, okay? But that is one plus side of it. And then I could take that and talk about it at the Pop Culture Conference. I'm going to send all of you tickets. Oh my God. Yes, I could do it. And I bet Jake Bender would be in the audience too. I bet he would. Probably be the beginning of a lifelong friendship. Anyways, that would be fun. All right. I am doing a Midwestern goodbye in the form of a very unhinged ramble. This whole thing has been an unhinged ramble. This whole account is an unhinged ramble. Thank you guys for being here. Okay, don't get got. Bye.